Hey girls, hey, I am excited for our November 1st Friday wellness check-in. I'm excited that you're here and that you're spending your lunchtime with us. I am enthralled that Dr. Sun would take this invitation to speak to you ladies. And this was something that God placed on my heart just to check in on the women who don't allow others to check in on them. So I am honored that you will allow me to check in. And this is just an opportunity for us to come together and for you to be encouraged during your lunch break. And we want you to know that you're seen, and we want you to know that your voice is heard, and we are here for you. A little bit about Sisterhood University. We are a safe space for women to come together to connect and collaborate. We have memberships where we have mastermind classes, we have in-person live events, we have virtual events, and we have fun connecting and collaborating. If you've had a big idea or you have a business and you've come to a place where you're having challenges or you feel like you're stuck, there is a community of sincere, genuine women within Sisterhood University. And if you have not marked your calendars, on November 10th, we have a in-person live jazz music social for all of you. That information we will send out after this call. And then November 19th, we have the one and only Natasha Davis. And the topic is how to bring a business idea to life. She is one of the biggest, most requested, amazing business strategists here in Atlanta. And we will have her on the 19th. And so I won't take up any more of your time. I'm excited to have Dr. Sun here, who is very passionate about being in social work. She works with government grants. She does amazing things with youth and those that are having challenges, women and children. And so I will let her do more of her own introduction because she can do it much better than I can. So I present to some and introduce to others the one and only Dr. Sun.
Excuse me, forgive me. Mika, you crack me up. You have so much energy. I wish I could put your energy in a bottle and spritz it on all over, at least a couple times a day. So thank you for that introduction. And I wish you stopped calling me Dr. Sun. My name is Sundania is my government name. I go by Sun for short. And I'm just happy to have a chance to talk with you ladies today. And, like Pastor says, I won't be before you too long. Hopefully, I'll share something that's meaningful to you. And if I do not, I welcome your critical feedback. Like Mika said, I'm a social worker, I'm a clinician, I'm a scientist, I'm a mom, I'm an educator, a couple different things, but who doesn't do a multitude of things? And I'm just happy to be able to have an opportunity to impart any little piece of what I do with you and hopefully receive a blessing from you as well. When Mika asked me to come and chat with you all, she first gave me a topic that I was unfamiliar with. And I said, well, I'm a researcher. I'm going to need to research that. I don't have enough time to research that. I can't do that. I looked at a YouTube and it was called The Soft Life. I hadn't heard of it, so if you've heard of it, put your comments about it in the chat. It was new to me, and it's going to take me a minute to get a grip on it. And but I decided that what I needed before I can even appreciate what a soft life was to take a step back a little bit further. And so then I said, well, what is it that you want me to talk about? And she said, honey, whatever you want to talk about. And my mind went all over creation, and I realized therein lied the problem. My mind goes too many places at one time in order to be able to fixate on one topic at a time. So thankfully, the other day I had the opportunity to rest for a little while in the MRI machine. And while I was there with myself and only myself, for a moment of time, I thought that one of the most important things for me right now, and it might be for you, it might not, maybe in this season, maybe in the previous, or maybe in the next, it'd be about taking those pauses and quieting your mind. I don't know if it was just my grandma or my aunt, but there was plenty of times they told me to get somewhere and sit down. And I know what they were talking about. I was like, I'm already sitting down. I'm just over here doing this. I'm over here doing that. I didn't know what they meant, but as an adult, I wish somebody would tell me to get somewhere and sit down, and I really, really would. And not just sit down to do nothing, but to sit down and actively quiet. It's very different. So environmental quiet is very different than the quiet that's inside of us. And that quiet often gets disturbed. It's disturbed by so many things in our environment, in our world, in our social life, from our finances, from our children, from the garbage man outside. The quiet gets unrested all the time. So that'll be just a general premise of what I'll talk to you about today, but I want to take it from a different direction. As a scientist, I work in the space of health equity, and largely minority health. And one of the things that we know for sure is Black women take the brunt of all manner of health problems, whether it's cancer or heart disease or hypertension or a multitude of things. It's just Black women are disproportionately disadvantaged in terms of their overall health. And one of the ways that we know that contribute to some of this is stress and distress. We have more stressors on us. We experience distress differently, and it impacts our bodies differently. I don't know if you ever heard of the term allostatic load. But that is a term that's used to describe our body's dysregulation of how we handle chronic stress or distress. Our body is actually giving us cues, signs and signals that we need to do something different and think about something different all the time. And in aggregate, excuse me, this is what contributes to hypertension, high blood pressure, larger BMIs, and greater hip to waist to hip ratio, and changes in our adrenal glands, and all the other things that lead to cardiovascular risk and metabolic risk and inflammatory diseases and neuroendocrine diseases too. So you mean to tell me that my grandma said, get somewhere and sit down, I can change my whole life? Why didn't she just say that? I wish she would have just said that, and maybe I would have got somewhere and sat down. So for 44 plus years, I've been running around and contributing to significant disparity that we as many Black women are often a part of, or our mothers are a part of, or our aunts are a part of, that we can actually make a small dent in. And while we cannot change every stressor that we experience or get rid of them, but we can respond to them differently. Because unfortunately, stress and our perception of it is a negative cycle that leads to more stress. We experience something, and what we think about it leads to us thinking about it more and more and more and more. And now we are even more dysregulated. We have more headaches and stomach aches and sleep less and feel more agitated and more irritable with others. And it has a cumulative effect. And what I'm asking, or what I'm bringing forth today, is something that I'm sure you already know, but sometimes we need to bring to the forefront of our mind when it goes to the back of our mind, is what can we do to interrupt that cycle? And it doesn't have to be this big, grandiose retreat. I went on a silent retreat for 3 days in the mountains. That was the hardest thing I think I've ever had to do. To ask someone with an overactive mind to literally get somewhere and sit down on the side of a mountain for 3 days and not say anything, that was stressful, but I did it. But we don't have to do it that significantly. It can be small doses of that throughout the day that can really regulate some of that dysregulation that we experience and curb some of those negative health effects that can creep up on us over time. So the way that I think about it is, when we experience stress, we can filter it, interpret it, and handle it in a couple different ways. How we filter it is how we identify whether or not whatever the worry is even belongs to you, someone else, or no one at all. I can find myself worried about how, the parking lot is structured at Target. That's not my problem. That's not my problem. But just because my mind is overactive and I can fixate on things, it can take me to one direction or next. But I think it's important that we make that differentiation. I imagine that most of us are spiritually led women. And as most of you may already know, the Bible says in Matthew 6:34 that today has enough trouble of its own. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will have enough worry for itself. Sufficient is today its its own trouble. So we can start to get ahead of ourselves too often and not focus on what we have the ability to control in this moment. And sometimes we also need to differentiate preparation from worry. We might have a planning, something we need to plan for, or an event coming up, or even speaking to people in a group that we've never spoken to before, and turn preparation into worry. When preparation is functional, worry is dysfunctional. And we have to define that for ourselves and what it looks like. And then how we interpret the things that we're thinking about. Is this a problem or a concern? Like, is this something that I really need to perseverate on and try to fix? Or is this something I need to maybe make a mental note on, put it in a parking lot, phone a friend about, you know? Sometimes we take concerns and turn them into worries and just perseverate on them for way too long. Sometimes it's as simple as, if you're not sure if it's a problem or a concern, measure it for yourself. On a scale of 1 to 10, how big of an issue is this for me? I talk to this about my son sometimes. He will lose his mind if his brother took his cookie. There's 3 cookies. His brother took 2. He took 1. Lost his mind about it. I'm like, dude, it's just a cookie. Is it really worth that big of a reaction? But sometimes our mind plays tricks on us and makes us overreact or have more concern about something than it really values. Asking ourselves, how much of my time, my thoughts, my energy, my bandwidth, etc., do I need to devote to this one thing? I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest, because this is a safe space, right? Last night, yesterday, someone got on my nerves pretty bad. And I took that thing to bed with me. And I woke up in the middle of that night and I was still thinking about that thing. And I woke up this morning and I was still thinking about that thing. And then as I was brushing my teeth, I said, self, no, it is not worth this much. And I just even saying that to myself out loud, making a mental note, if I needed to write it on a sticky note and put it on my mirror, or just saying it out loud, saying it to myself to validate that this was not a concern that I needed to perseverate on, or give more of myself and my bandwidth to it than I needed to. And then lastly, how do I handle it? If this is true, if this thing that I'm concerned about is truly my own problem, do I have the power to fix it or change it? And do I have the capacity and the resources to do so? And if you don't, where are you going to get them? So instead of taking a thought and going down this train of now we're at a headache and a stomach ache and nothing is better, what can I do different to take the stress or worry and reduce it in my life? And how much of this problem can I truly fix? Sometimes we look at the magnitude of something. No, I can't fix all of that, right? But if there's a piece that I can impact, maybe that's where I put my energy. Maybe that's what I have bandwidth for. I can't clean this whole house right now, but I'll wipe off the counter. I got that, right? Sometimes we just have to go through a mental process of saying, can I filter in? What matters to me in this or to someone else? Does it matter at all? Interpreting it as a problem or not at all. Do I have the bandwidth to fix it or not? And then actually doing something about it makes a difference. I like to use the example of weightlifting sometimes in dealing with problems, as an analogy to problems and worry. For example, you can have a 20-pound weight and you can lift it 20 times without a problem, right? Gets you stronger. That's the whole point of it. Now, take that same 20-pound weight and hold it for 20 minutes. Muscle starts shaking and it's too much. It can actually have a deleterious or a more unhealthy effect because you've held on to it for too long. I like to think about taking opportunities to quiet your mind as putting down the weight. I think saying weightlifting is a misconception. It should be called weightlifting and putting down, because it's the putting down that is restorative in order for you to be able to lift it up again. You can't just hold a weight for that long and expect it to be okay, or for it even to have the same impact on your body. It can have what we call like the law of diminishing returns in business, right? So sometimes too much effort can lead to a negative output or less of a return. Sometimes you just have to put it down. And in that putting down of the weight is an opportunity to quiet your mind. So now I want to take a second, if you're have an opportunity on your phone or your computer, to put in the chat ways that you take an opportunity to quiet your mind and how often that you do it, whether it be through prayer. We started this call in prayer with Mika, and that helped quiet my mind. I start my morning in prayer, and that helped quiet my mind and also helped get that person who irritated me yesterday off my mind, by the way. Practicing mindfulness, mindful breathing, walking, eating, being. Sleep is restorative, not laying down and worrying, but actually sleeping. Exercising, not being worried about, going to the gym and spending an hour there and burning, 200 calories, but just getting some meaningful movement going can quiet your mind and shift gears from wherever you've been. Sometimes a change of scenery. If you have been in the office all day, or in a cubicle all day, stepping outside into the sunshine and letting the vitamin D onto your skin can help you shift from that worry, that angst, that stress, that irritating coworker enough to put the weight down and experience a moment of quiet. Now, y'all may laugh about this, but I still think it's therapeutic to watch clouds. When I was a little kid, I'd lay on my back in the grass and watch clouds, like watch them go by, the shape of them, make stories out of them. I'm not saying you need to be a grown adult and lay in Piedmont Park, but ain't nothing wrong with it either if you might want to give it a try. It's just something to um, distract you from the concern. And from a physiological standpoint, you can actually reduce your heart rate, your breathing, increase your blood flow just by shifting your energy in that direction. Same with stargazing, being creative, doing art, engaging in art. You don't have to be a painter. Those paint and sips are real. Like, those are therapeutic. Like, they're okay. Um, dancing. I love dancing. It is a way for me to turn off the science and just turn on some other energy. And then there's other, like, clinically based techniques called like grounding, or just strategies that I'd be happy to share with you. But let's see what you all said. A bubble bath. Oh, I do love a good bubble bath. Lay on the floor with your feet on the wall for 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah, that's good. That's also very good for your circulation as well. There's another technique called progressive muscle relaxation, which is something that I like to do. I like to do it with my clients, my kids, and myself. Whether you lay on the floor, lay on the bed, or what have you, and you tense all of your muscles from either from head to toe or toe to head one at a time, so that you're focusing on the contraction of every single muscle. And in the reverse order, you relax each muscle group one at a time while, inhaling and exhaling at the same time. That promotes positive blood flow, positive energy, relaxation, and a way to put that weight down. Any other ways or thoughts? Does anybody like yoga?
My chat thing isn't working, but I was going to say yoga and meditation. It's Mary.
Hi, Mary. I
Hey.
like yoga too. I
Yeah.
like it a lot. God bless you, because I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I can't meditate. I can't. Like, it's just my mind goes, it's too much for my mind. I need little small chunks, little small windows where I can just take it down a notch. I've sat in periods where people are meditating for 20, 30 minutes, and I'm shopping, I'm doing groceries, I'm balancing my checkbook. It's too much. How do you do it, Mary?
I do it in very small chunks. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, 5 minutes, if I can do 5 minutes, that's great. And I try to increase. There's also meditative yoga.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to help a lot. That way I get a little bit more time in.
That's
Men-
awesome.
Mhm.
No, that's awesome. One of the things that I like to do, and this is something that we all kind of should do because it's something we're naturally doing, it's not just that we're breathing, it's how we're breathing. Taking a therapeutic cleansing breath intentionally, purposefully, with the goal, with the intention of reducing distress and increasing our positive blood flow and oxygenation of our blood flow, has such therapeutic effects. And so I like to do it every time I sit down. So my rule of thumb is when my hind parts hit the chair, then I take a deep breath, a therapeutic breath. Even when I'm getting in the car. Like, so for example, in the morning, I have 3 kids. I'm making 6 meals before I leave the house. They're hollering, yelling. It's like they're loading up on the bus. I have a van, I call it a bus. Loading up on the bus, to get in the car. And as soon as I sit down, put my hands on the steering wheel, I close my eyes. I inhale for 3, exhale for 3 a couple of times, and they know, just shh. Mama got somewhere and sat down. I'm just trying to quiet my mind so I can transition safely, effectively, efficiently from this moment to the next moment. So if you couple whatever quieting strategy with something else that you already do, then you're more likely to do it and do it frequently. I don't know if y'all do challenges, but I love to challenge people. I'm super competitive. So I would love, I'll leave it to Mika to throw it out there. If she wants to challenge y'all for 7 days, quieting your mind 7 times a day for 7 days, and see if that impacts how you talk to others, how you respond to others, how quickly you get work done or efficiently you get work done, how much better you sleep, how much better you eat. Because truth is, the more stressed we are, the poorer we eat. And the poorer we eat, the poorer we sleep, and the poorer we sleep, the poorer we eat, and the poorer we eat, the poorer we think. See what I'm going here? So sometimes you just need to find an exit, a small exit, put the weight down just for a minute to restart that lift with more strength and more vigor. The last thing I'll say, open it up to discussion and hand the mic back off to Mika. And this is funny to me. Well, wasn't funny at the time. So Mika knows my youngest son, Lennox. He is a handful. And when he was about 3 or 4, he had done something in his room and it was looking like a hot mess. Things were everywhere. And I walked in, things were everywhere. And I just took like this. And he said, Mama, I'm tired of all that wind. I said, boy, that wind about saved your life. I was just putting down my weight for a second, but I see you want me to pick it back up. So I practice this at work with my family, with my kids, with my clients. And if y'all would ever like to talk one-on-one or separately about anything that you find that you might be perseverating about, thinking about, whether it's work related, interpersonal, in your relationship, in your parenting life, with your parent, something that was traumatic or significant with your parent, please send me a private message and I'd be happy to touch base with you offline and separately and talk about different strategies or resources to support you in your journey to quieting your mind. Thank you.
No, thank you, Sundania. I wish I had a notepad, but guess what? I can go back and listen to the recording. That was amazing. I do have a question. So I do try to do the breaths, but I find myself getting even more anxious in trying to do the breaths. So how can you quiet yourself enough to do the deep breathing?
So if you find yourself thinking more or feeling more anxious as you're trying to do an intervention to reduce the anxiety or the worry, you might need to couple that with something else, whether it's an affirmation or a mantra or even imagery, focusing your eyes on something else. Sometimes it's about the environment in which you're doing. You might need to step outside or step away from the space that you're in that you might have started to do that breathing in. It's about what you say to yourself when you're doing it. My sweet little doll, because I think Mika shared with you that I have 3 kids and I teach them, they teach me. So she does gymnastics, and she, the balance beam is a scary place for her because, you could fall off and you could die. Well, the truth is, but I don't like to say that. And she says, before I get on, I take a deep breath. And I'm like, okay, well, like, that's great. I appreciate that. And she goes, and I also at the same time say to myself, trust God. And I was like, that is the sweetest thing. But I'm so grateful that that's what she does. She knows it's not the breath alone that's going to make the difference, but she needs to anchor on some truth for herself to get through that moment. So out of the mouths of babes.
Amen. I love it. Does anybody else have any questions or anything you'd just like to say?